Hi everyone, this is Brian Hayes and welcome to episode 34 of the Music Mind podcast. Today my special guest is one of Australia's greatest ever guitar players, Brett Garsed. For many years Brett toured and recorded with Australia's most successful pop singer. This included recording on the highest selling album ever by an Australian artist. Please enjoy my conversation with Brett Garsed.
You sow, that old saying is true. You're gonna reap just what you sow. That old saying is true. When you mistreat somebody, baby, someday they're gonna mistreat you. You've been laughing with it, baby. Someday you're gonna be crying. Crying further on up the road. Soon you'll find out I wasn't lying.
Well, hi Brett and welcome to the Music Mind podcast. It's fantastic to have you here today as my special guest for episode 34 in the series.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Our audience have just seen and heard a really great trio version of the old 1950s Texas shuffle blues called Further On Up the Road. Now, you're playing with two fantastic musicians, a great bass player and a great drummer. Firstly, can you tell us a bit about those guys and your association with those musicians?
Yeah, well, it's Jerry Pantazis on drums and Craig Newman on bass. So I'll start with Craig because I'd known of Craig's existence because he was already a legend around the Melbourne scene, been playing in bands and doing sessions and things, and actually playing on the Hey Hey It's Saturday show for years.
Okay.
Before I met him, I think I first met Craig in 2002 when we were doing the Last Time tour with John Farnham, and Craig joined the band then. And yeah, I've just done so many projects with him ever since. It's I've lost count. And I met Jerry, probably met Jerry around the same time, and he was already same thing, legend in the Melbourne circles of just doing all sorts of gigs and for a period, Jerry and Craig and Phil Tertio, great keyboard player and composer Phil Tertio, and I had a band called Damage, which in the mid 2000s till about say 2008 till about 2012, I think we used to play at a club in Melbourne called Spencer's Live, which isn't there anymore, unfortunately. But I just sort of feel like I've known these guys forever. I can't sort of remember a time when I didn't know them. And
were the three of you recording in separate locations, or were you playing simultaneously in a studio?
No, we did it separately. What I would do is I'd demo the track here at home with a drum machine, and I'd play bass on it just so I had something to play too.
Yes.
And then I'd set up this microphone and get my guitar going and just do a live vocal guitar take.
Okay.
And then I would send the separate tracks of that to Jerry and Craig. And usually what would happen is Jerry would then track to I'd send him a click track, and he would track to my bass part and guitar vocal track.
Yeah.
And of course, not my drum machine track.
No.
And that would be discarded.
Yeah,
and then Craig would lay his bass on it. But we'd all do live takes, so it's the closest we could get to doing a live session together. But what happened was we were doing a seminar about a month before that, or a few weeks before that, at a school in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it was originally Jerry's class for the music students at the school, and he suggested having Craig and I along just so we could appeal to people other than just drummers.
Great.
And we were talking about what songs to play, and the usual instrumental suspects came up, like the Chicken and Stratus and all that sort of stuff. And
Yep.
and I said, look, why don't we do some vocal tunes? I'd been singing a bit, and I just thought it might open up the floor a bit and generalise the appeal of it all. Once you start singing, all of a sudden everybody can sort of relate to what's happening. Whereas
totally
not everyone can relate to just instrumental music. And Jerry actually suggested further on up the road, because he said, let's do a blues shuffle. That'd be a nice feel to demonstrate to people. And so we did that, and we did Just Got Paid, the old ZZ Top song, which is also on the YouTube channel. So,
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, it was good, and it was amazing how many of the students responded to it. Like, a lot of singers came up afterwards and had a chat, and it was good. Like I said, it was exactly what I'd hoped would happen, is it sort of generalised the response rather than just being about what scales do you use.
That track is just, you'd swear you boys were just, at a studio in separate rooms in a studio. So congratulations on the live feel. Now, vocals, I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, I play a lot of instruments and teach a lot of people one-on-one. And all of the guitar students I teach, I almost plead with them, learn to sing at least a few songs. You haven't got to be the world's best singer, particularly guitar-based songs. Most of the people that recorded, I mean, you, and we'll get to it, you got the opportunity to work with one of the world's best singers in John Farnham. Right. That's a real singer. I just want to tell you about Eric Clapton. When I was growing up, I started out on guitar. Well, you and me are roughly the same age. I started out on guitar when I was 8, and Creedence Clearwater Revival were the number one band in the world at the time. The Beatles had split up. So I'm a huge fan of John Fogerty's songwriting and his lead guitar playing, and particularly his vocals. His vocals, he's one of those iconic voices. Now, he's not a trained singer. He doesn't put the guitar down and stand out the front and try and do a Frank Sinatra. If you're sitting there with a guitar, there's almost this assumption that you will sing. And I found, a bit like you just said, I found when I started to open my mouth, as terrible as it was, I had a new door to my audience. You're obviously a fan and are well aware of Tommy Emmanuel, the great Australian acoustic guitar player. I often hear the comment amongst my students, I say, have you checked out Tommy Emmanuel? Oh yeah, he can't be much of a guitar player. He doesn't sing.
Is that right? People say that.
I hear that comment. And I just immediately, I just say, whoa, no, let's revisit that. Now, interestingly, in the last decade or so, Tommy's introduced a couple of vocal songs in his set.
Tommy sang for quite a while.
Yeah.
I've heard him sing for quite a while.
Like you do 9 Pound Hammer or something like that, just a couple of old blues songs. And I think, I wonder whether, maybe subconsciously, even in his own mind, you got one of the world's greatest ever guitar players, but that's a comment I've heard relatively regularly.
A thing I've found is, amongst a lot of people, is they can't seem to wrap their heads around the fact that someone can be amazing at two things. Like the amount of people that don't, they acknowledge that Gary Moore, Steve Lukather, Rory Gallagher, Ian Moss, Eric Clapton. I mean, how many guitar players do we need to go down who are acknowledged for their amazing guitar playing, but are also equally as good as singers?
Exactly.
And look at Mossy. I mean, in the case of Ian, I mean, he could just put the guitar down and stand there, and you've got one of the best voices in the world. I would give anything to have that voice.
Now, your voice, the reason I wanted to talk about this is I really liked your vocals on this. And when you played your guitar solo, it sounded like you just turned off your voice and kept singing through the guitar. Now, in a world of a million meaningless notes on an electric guitar, I thought your vocals brilliantly introduced your guitar solo. It was like B.B. King. You hear B.B. King say, "I got the blues," and then he'll play something. Well, hello, it's the same person. It's not
The
like
question and answer thing.
Yeah. When I was growing up, Eric Clapton is God, best guitar player in the world. And I'm thinking, geez, I don't know, I'm into George Benson and into Lee Ritenour and Larry Carlton and Tommy Emmanuel. I'm not too sure Eric's, in my mind, I don't see that Eric was better than them. And the funny thing is I went to the movie The Colour of Money that featured Tom Cruise and Paul Newman.
Right.
And the title song of that was Eric's It's in the Way That You Use It.
That's
where
right.
Eric sang it. And from that moment on, I thought, wow, Clapton's a great player. His voice got me in. I wasn't that intrigued by Eric's playing until I was intrigued by his voice. And then I heard, a bit like I just said to you, great singer, follows his guitar playing like his voice. That's an interesting guitar you're playing in that clip. You've got it behind you, the upside down Fender headstock. What is that guitar?
It's made by a fantastic Sydney luthier named Charles Cilia, or Chilia.
Okay.
It's spelled Cilia, and I've known Charles for a long time, and I met him through a good friend of mine, Michael Dolce, who's a fantastic guitar player from Sydney, and who's been playing Charles's guitars a lot longer than I have.
Okay.
And Charles just eventually reached out to me a couple of years back, and he said, "I'm building you a guitar." And because I always wanted to get one, because I thought, I should be playing an Australian-made guitar, and there's an amazing luthier here building them, and I should be playing one. But I don't know, I always found a bit of trouble justifying the cost of it. And I'd been playing my old Strat, which is sitting over there. In John Farnham's band, Stuart Fraser was our other guitar player, and I just loved playing with Stuart, but he ended up getting cancer and was too ill to play.
Okay. And
we thought, well, I'll continue on and just hold down the fort, and we were just hoping Stuart would get better and be able to come right back, but alas, that did not happen. But because I wanted to cover Stuart's parts and honour the beautiful stuff he was doing, I went from playing that blue guitar that's hanging up there,
I can see it there. Yep.
I went back to playing my old Fender Strat, so I ended up playing that for about 8 years.
Okay.
And when Charles talked to me about building this guitar,
yep,
we talked about what we wanted to do, and I said, well, I'd love to make it a hybrid of that blue guitar, the ESP, and my Fender Strat, and that's sort of what it is. So
okay.
So
humbucking pickups on it. Is it two humbuckers?
I went with the two humbuckers and 24 frets.
Yeah.
And the Strat style contour and everything like that.
Yeah.
And a whammy bar, vibrato
bar,
which the ESP doesn't have. Charles sent me two guitars to just try out the feel of them.
Yeah.
That he'd previously made, and they were both sitting on stands just over here, and one of them had a reverse headstock, and I was just looking at it and I thought, gee, I really like that. I've never had the only other guitar I've got with a reverse headstock is a Steinberger, which you can just see the bottom of it there.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's nice too, because that was my favourite guitar for a long time. I'm like that. I get settled on guitars and I just stick with them for decades. And
absolutely,
the Telecaster here used to be yellow, but I've refinished it in red. But
okay,
I played that guitar for 10 years, and I played the ESP for 10 years.
Yes.
I'm kind of like that. I get settled on one guitar, and then when Charles sent me this, that was about 8 months ago. and
You haven't put it down
it's
since.
the only guitar I've played since.
Yeah.
It's just I've
And
fallen
I
in love with it.
suppose one final sort of geeky question: string gauges.
I'm playing 10 to 52. I went through a long phase about 15 years ago. I went through a phase of playing 11 to 52 because I play a lot of slide guitar.
Yes.
And the heavier gauge was better for that.
Yeah.
But see, I also do like I'm one of those guys that's guilty of the too many notes syndrome. But
Yeah.
I love to sort of play a lot of dexterous things
Yes.
if I can, and so I have to sort of go up the middle as far as string gauge goes, and I found 10 to 52, the lighter top but the heavier bottom. I can sort of still get away with the slide guitar stuff and do all the bending I need to do. I think if I was gigging a lot more, my hands would get stronger and I could go back to the 11s, which I did like the feel of them.
Yeah.
Stuart Fraser used to play 12 to 56 on his electric guitar in standard tuning, which puts him in Stevie Ray Vaughan category.
Yeah.
Stevie used 13s, but he was down a half step. So when you
Yes.
drop a half step, you lose a string gauge. So
Yes.
I mean, Stuart just had if you shook your hand, he'd almost
It'd
break
crush
it.
you. Yeah.
Very strong hands. Yeah.
One final question before we move away from further on up the road. Obviously, when you're singing that song, there is a story. It's a very clear story. And it's like those great old Chuck Berry songs, No Particular Place to Go. It's very obvious what the story is from the vocal point of view. What are you thinking about when you're playing your guitar solo? What, if anything, are you thinking about? Well, hello, I haven't got the words anymore. Just like to get inside your mind when you're just grooving there on that. And you are I guess, a virtuoso style player. But in that song, you threw a lot of that flashy technique out the window and to me just played the blues on the guitar. But I'm interested, what were you thinking about when you're playing in that type of style?
The funny thing is I've always felt like I did myself a bit of a disservice because when I originally started to play the guitar, my older brother John was the guy that had the guitar, and it's actually still hanging up on the wall there. It's an old Maton.
Great.
And he had to take over our family farm when our father passed away, so he had no time for such things. And when I was about 11, I'd drag this guitar out from under the bed and look at it, and eventually my brother-in-law showed me a few chords, and I was raised on my brother's record collection, which was Creedence Clearwater Revival and Jimi Hendrix and Santana and Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, what we call classic rock now.
Yeah.
But and I remember for many, many years, I moulded myself in the style of like Fogerty's guitar playing. Had massive impact on me. I tried to learn that stuff.
Yeah,
I tried to
me too.
learn all of Heard It Through the Grapevine, every lick of that thing. And so basically I was a blues rock guitar player.
Okay.
And then it was, I suppose, late 70s I heard, or mid to late 70s I heard Larry Carlton.
Oh, fantastic.
And Jeff Beck had an impact on me too, because I loved Wired and Blow by Blow. So I was starting to hear things other than straight blues rock. And Larry Carlton really had a huge impact on me. I hadn't really even heard of the stuff he'd done with Steely Dan, but I got his first solo record, and I'd never heard anyone phrase that way with a rock sound.
Beautiful, warm
And play
sound
those
too.
play those kind of notes, like because Larry's a world-class jazz guitarist, and he is the epitome of jazz fusion, I think. Like
I agree. Yeah.
And then after that, I heard. Well, then Van Halen came along, and he made us all sit up and take notice that there was other things to do other than just play straight pentatonic scales.
Correct. Yeah.
And then I heard, through Eddie's recommendation, I found Alan Holdsworth, and Alan had a huge impact on me. But up until that point, I would have loved to have been like Mick Ralphs from Bad Company. Like I love Mick Ralphs and Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy. Like they were the guitar players I really loved to play like and emulate. But I did, I love Ritchie Blackmore. Like Ritchie pushed the envelope, and Jimmy Page did it too. Like they all looked for things. They had other influences other than just straight blues. And I think when I heard, especially Santana, I had the live album Moonflower, and Santana was playing a lot of really amazing stuff on that. And I think it's because he'd been spending a lot of time hanging out with John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think that's the case.
Probably.
I don't know. There was something about those notes, the notes that were other than straight blues notes, that just got me. And I thought, what are those things? Why do I like them? And then when I heard Larry do it, and then I heard George Benson do it, like
Yeah.
When it's done that well, it can't sort of help but grab you somehow. And
Well, you've mentioned a lot of, well, for me, Larry Carlton, Lee Ritenour, because I got interested in the saxophone relatively early, the great Tom Scott and the LA Express, well, Larry,
yeah,
on those early records, it was Larry on guitar. And I'm thinking, I've got the best of both worlds. I'm hearing this great contemporary sax playing, this unbelievable guitar playing. In my mind, I was sort of torn a little bit in two directions. A lot of people start on the acoustic guitar, and you're famous for one of the most beautiful acoustic guitar moments in pop music on Burn For You with John Farnham. That part, when Burn For You came out, I thought, oh, that's got to be Tommy Emmanuel. That's Tommy back and John. Tell us the story for Burn For You,
Well, that I inherited that beautiful part from Phil Buckle, who wrote the music for the song, and John and Ross Fraser, I think along with Phil, compiled the lyrical end. I think John actually was responsible for most of the lyrical content.
Yeah, what a song.
And it's a classic song, isn't it? And I tried to emulate Phil's part as best I could. And the funny thing was, like, when I came back in 1994 to do the Talk of the Town tour with John, I was living in America at this stage, and thankfully, God bless John, he asked me to come back and tour with him again.
Great.
Never been more grateful for anything in my life.
Yeah.
And I came back, and I was just sort of told, well, you're playing this song with John. It's called Burn For You. You better learn it. So I started to learn it as best I could, and unbeknownst to me, that Stuart Fraser, who I just met, had joined the band, and Stuart was one of the most amazing acoustic guitar players you'd ever see. Like, I mean, Stuart could do the whole Chet Atkins boom chick thing. He was just phenomenal. So I sort of...
You're thinking, why me? I suppose you
after I watched Stuart play acoustic, I was like, what am I doing this for? But I was so honoured to do it with John. I just loved it. And I suppose I put a bit of an original twist on it in any way I could. But I sat with Phil Buckle, because I've known Phil for years, and I sat with him at his house, and I said, well, I'm playing Burn For You now. And Phil said, oh, play it for me. So I started playing it. And I had seen Phil play it with John previously.
Yeah.
And so I'd seen his hands in certain positions, and I thought, okay, so I've got to be up here when I play the opening part. And
beautiful.
And Phil just sat there watching me play it, and he went, that's the same. That's different. That's a little different. And it never even occurred to me to actually ask him how to play it. Like, I just carried on my own merry way, and he didn't question it. So I suppose he thought, no, you got to do your thing. So,
well, I like it. And I did see you, I don't know what tour it was, but I did see you doing that behind John, and I thought, wow, that's great guitar playing. I suppose my question is, the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar are two entirely different animals. Like
they are, yeah.
How much acoustic guitar playing did you do, I guess, across your career? Imagine in the recordings, sometimes you'd be asked to do acoustic tracks, would you?
Yeah. Well, I've never been a student of the acoustic. Like you said, I started on electric, and I loved electric guitar because of the flexibility of it. I actually love the sound of electric guitars with sustain. Because I think I think that was the appeal too when I started to hear players like Larry and then of course Alan Holdsworth was because they were, especially Alan, because he was really going for the horn like sound, and and I got that. Like I'm not a trained jazz musician, so I certainly wouldn't be able to sit down and talk about Chris Potter lines with anybody, or Brecker lines or anything like that. But I've met a lot of young guitar players that are heavily influenced by these people, and they've transcribed them, and they're doing it. They're getting that instrument, that language on the guitar, and I'm just in awe of it. But the saxophone is such a beautiful sound, and I think the one thing Alan always talked about was that ability on a saxophone to start with a quiet note and increase the dynamic to loud and then bring it back.
Like the human voice, Yeah,
exactly. And that was the thing he struggled with on the guitar, because with the guitar being a percussive instrument, unless you can try it with a volume pedal, but I think Alan wanted to naturally have that blowing sort of effect, and it is hard to get on a guitar, and he struggled with his sound for years to try and find it. I think that's why eventually he migrated to the syntax a lot, because he could use a breath controller and just do it through synthesizer. But I'd go through phases where I'd work on my acoustic playing. I didn't even own a 6-string acoustic for about the first 5 years of my life.
Wow. Well, that sums it up.
I was just an apprentice, so I didn't have a great deal of money.
No.
And my mother went out on a limb and bought that Fender Strat for me when I was about
Beautiful.
13.
Yeah.
And she spent a lot of money on that, and unbeknownst to me, it was back in those days in the 70s. It was the equivalent of about $4,000.
Oh.
So yeah, she really put her faith in me with that one.
One final comment. You mentioned the saxophone there. I had the honour of doing an episode with Rex Go. Do you know Rex from Sydney, the guitar
I
player?
don't know Rex personally, but of course I know who Rex is. He's a legend. Yeah.
So we got to the collaboration, and I said, Rex, what would you like to do? And Rex said, I'd like to do Burn for You. You play soprano sax and I'll play acoustic. And I think, oh, how good's this?
Oh, so, man, I've got to find that. Is that on your website?
It's on. It's in the episode.
Look,
I'll send you a link to it. And Rex played a Gibson Hummingbird acoustic, but he tuned it down a semitone for two reasons: easier to press his fingers down, but more importantly, he said, Brian, if I did it in B, which is his normal key you do it in, you'd be in C sharp on the B flat soprano. And I'm thinking, hello, we got a guitar player here who's actually thinking of the sax player. So he said, easier for me, I'll tune it down, I'll play it in my normal key, put you in C. Thank you, Rex. Instead of being in 7 sharps, I'm just in no sharps. So, and it come out really good, but it's interesting. He wanted to hear that song, you know, with that saxophone lead, a soprano sax. It come out really, really beautiful. And what an honour to play a duet unaccompanied with Rex.
Oh, that's all. I've got to check that out.
I'll send you the link to that. Now, I want to come back to John Farnham because that's such a big part of your life. But music education, I'm taking it that you're essentially self-taught. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I did. There was a chap here. I'm speaking to you from the Castlemaine area, down near Bendigo.
Okay,
in Victoria, and and there was a fantastic guitar teacher here in town named Jeff Lyons, and I got to take 4 lessons with Jeff, and he was a real hotshot guitar player back then.
Yeah,
and a great player.
Yeah,
quite the local legend, and I just remember when I went in to take lessons with him. I think I was about 11 or 12, and perhaps 11. I think I was about 11. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And my brother had played me Deep Purple, and I'd heard Richie Blackmore play Speed King, and I thought, well,
that'd be
I've
good.
got to get me some of that. So
yeah.
I said, "Jeff, I want to learn to be a lead guitar player." And he went, fair enough. So he drew a picture in a book, in my exercise book full of chord symbols and things, and he drew a picture of my left hand, and he went 4 fingers, 4 frets.
Use them.
And I thought, what a fantastic way to start a young player, like just use all your fingers. Because I think if I'd gone down the road of almost the Clapton road of just letting these fingers do the heavy lifting and really not even using the 4th finger a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
I would have been disappointed, because all the players I ended up gravitating towards definitely used all their fingers, because they were more jazz-oriented players or fusion players. So yeah, Jeff got me off on the right foot there. But he taught me 4 songs. I learned "Shakin' All Over."
Oh, great! Yeah.
I learned "Seasons of Change" by Blackfeather, and he just taught me a rock and roll bass line, a 12-bar blues bass line, and then I think it was what was it, the Jungle Walk or something, or Swingin' Safari, isn't it?
Oh,
something like that.
Something like that.
But that was it.
Just on that, when you think about that, what a great teacher. Let's start playing some songs right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Let's
Straight
play
away.
songs,
Seasons of Change was fantastic because he taught me the vocal melody, which was my lead guitar introduction.
Yes.
But then I had to play, what was it, G, C, F at the end. So it does the
dreaded
melody,
F chord,
and then it does G, C, and then an F chord.
Yeah.
And at first, all I could play was the top part of the F chord because I
Absolutely.
hadn't managed a bar chord yet.
No,
but the other thing Jeff did was he recognised that there were very heavy strings on that mate, and so he immediately put a set of 8s on there.
Okay.
And that was because he said this will get you started,
make it easier. Yeah.
And I do remember sitting at the kitchen table, and I just was so into it, I couldn't stop playing, and my fingers were hurting so bad because I had no calluses, and I even tried the Band-Aid thing, and I went, "No, this isn't going to work because I've got to have to go through this." But and there was a stage. I think I've been playing for about a year, and my mother and my sister and her husband went away for a 2-week holiday to the Blue Mountains or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't take the guitar with me.
Oh.
And I remember just going
Withdrawal symptoms.
Withdrawals.
Yeah.
It was awful. I'd be watching TV in a hotel room, and there'd be a music show on, and someone would be playing a guitar, and it was like torture. And I remember we got home, and I ran straight into the lounge room where all my stuff was, and just grabbed the guitar straight away. And it was like, I'm back home again. And
well, doesn't that tell you that tells you a story, doesn't it?
I think you've got to have that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not even about dedication. It's about just a genuine need to play the guitar.
You've got to want to do
music. You know, just have that there.
So this is a good sort of segue into, you've got a wonderful series of instructional books. The one I just want to talk about briefly is your hybrid picking book. And you've got a little video. I'm going to play just a short extract of you, I guess, promoting that book. So let's play that first, and then I'll come back and talk about it.
Hi everyone, Brett Garsed here. Luke Lewis from Guitar Vivo and I were thinking a good way to promote my book, this book, which I just happen to have a copy handy. A hybrid picking guitar technique would be for me to choose an exercise from the book, first show you the exercise, and then show you the process I personally go through to take a lick like the ones that are contained in this book and sort of incorporate them into an improvised solo. So what we're going to do is I'll first choose something from here that I like, and then I will show it to you how to play the exercise, and then I'm just going to blow a bunch of takes, and we'll see how we go, and I'll just keep going until I get something I like, and I'll include all the crash and burn moments and everything, so it'll be hysterical fun. So without any further ado, let's get into it. I'll run you through how to play this particular exercise, and then after that I'll show you my method for sort of practicing how to insert it into an improvised solo.
So, Brett, in that video, there's beautiful notation and tab, genuine music notation. You're playing an exercise and you say, you know, you're just playing it, but on the screen there's standard music notation and tab. Do you personally read standard notation or not?
I learned classical guitar, or I studied classical guitar with a fantastic teacher in Bendigo named Don Charlton when I was about 17. From 17 to 18, I went to Don for lessons, and Don was just awesome. He was only, I'd say Don's only about 5 or 6 years older than me, so I was a young fella getting taught by just a slightly older person, and it was great. So we related on a lot of levels, and he was a huge Clapton fan, so we could talk about electric guitar as well. But he taught me how to read music, and without even knowing it, over the course of that year, he kept upping the ante as to what I was reading, and I was always struggling but getting better, and I didn't even realise it at the time. And it got to the stage where we could sight read duets together, and I was blown away. I remember the first day he did it, he said, "We're going to play this," and I went, "Well, I haven't seen it." And he said, "Yeah, we're going to sight read it."
Great.
And he said, "You'll be right. Let's go." You know, and he just stuck it in front of me, and the parts were quite simple, but the way that I couldn't believe the fact we could sit there and I could look at this page and this
on the
amazing
spot
piece
here we
was
go.
happening.
Yeah,
it was just incredible. It was an incredible introduction to what an art form the written note really is. Like it's just beautiful, and but then of course, you know, over the years gravitating towards being in John's band, I didn't read music again after that.
No.
Luke Lewis, who owns the company Guitar Vivo that I do the books for, Luke's got a transcriber who takes care of all of that. Luke could do it, but he's a highly accomplished musician. But he's got a transcriber who I owe that person a free dinner or something, because the amount of notes they've had to transcribe on my behalf is just above and beyond.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, you know, nowadays, is that done electronically? Because, you know, particularly the way you play, and in that book, you're just doing some red hot licks. I'm thinking, oh my God, imagine the person, you know,
they've got to go through it.
It's still manual. Oh,
it has to be, because especially for someone like me, because I don't play conventional shapes and patterns, and with the hybrid picking, it's like no one really does it quite like I do it. It's not really a brag, but
No.
it's not at all a brag. It's just that over the years I've come to realise that when you are self-taught, you have idiosyncrasies to your playing where
Yes.
there'll be little moments in there where even when you talk to highly accomplished players, they're like, "What are you doing?" And
Exactly.
my most recent book is a slide guitar book, which I'm
Yep.
really proud of, and it's all about the techniques I've used to play slide in standard tuning.
Well, we'll get to that because
That's
I
the
do.
same deal,
I
really.
want to do a similar thing. But just before we leave that discussion, is your advice to someone starting out on guitar, if they get the opportunity to learn to read standard notation, take it, work on it, learn to
Absolutely.
read? Yeah.
Absolutely. I thoroughly recommend a good teacher as well. Like I looked for other teachers, like in between those lessons with Jeff that got me started and the lessons with Don.
Yeah.
What I really was looking for was a jazz teacher.
Yeah.
And I actually spent the entire day yesterday with Erwin Thomas, or Jack Jones, as people normally know him,
Yes.
because I've known Erwin for decades now.
Yes.
And I'm actually going to do a gig with Southern Suns at Crown Casino at the Palms venue on
Good.
the 1st of November. So Angus Birchall's playing drums, so we've got a couple of
Oh.
fun band ring-ins in there. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I was talking to Erwin yesterday about, because he studied with Tony. Oh, Calabro, I think that's his last
That's a name. Yeah. That's
and
a
yeah,
familiar
I
name.
think that's his name. Wonderful guitar teacher. He's taught a lot of
Yeah.
great guitar players
Yeah.
here in Australia, and Erwin was just a prime example of a naturally gifted individual getting
Yep.
great guidance from the ground up. And Tony was that teacher I was always looking for, but just couldn't find around here at that stage.
That's
And
amazing.
when I was very, very young, here in Castlemaine, they would have an arts festival.
Right.
And every year, and my mother took me to see Don Burrows and George Goller play.
Oh.
And they played in like the local basketball arena.
Yep. Yep.
And George had just got, it might have even been a Maton. He just got a seven
Yep.
string.
Seven
And I
string
think he'd
Maton.
I think he'd literally just got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he played it that night like he'd owned it all his life and studied it. And apparently they just got given it to him. And he thought, oh, I'll try this out. And he's just got bass lines going all over the place and extended
Incredible.
voicings.
Yeah.
And you know, Don's playing
Everything.
on
Anything
a
that.
piece of reed cut out of a swamp with holes drilled in it and making it
sounding
sound like
awesome.
magic. I mean, it was. I'll never forget. It was one of the most entertaining musical experiences I've ever. Now, see, George.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. I actually became good friends with his son, Pete Goller, who recently passed away. He lived in Ballarat. Yeah, Pete was
Okay.
a lovely fella, and
Yeah. Okay.
I used to play with a band in Ballarat called the Green Brothers, and
Yeah.
wonderful band.
What
And
did
Pete
Peter
would al-
play?
Pete
What
was a
inst-
guitar player.
Guitar player. Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah.
and Pete was always there, and I'd tell him, yeah, the minute I met him, I told him about that experience of seeing his father and what a life-changing moment it was. And that was yet another example of how, boy, if George had lived up the road, I would have beat his door down, just annoying him for advice. I mean, I was so desperate to find someone like that. When I studied with Don, he would give me like very simple etudes and things to learn at first, and I'd go home and I'd struggle through the notes and I'd learn the piece, memorize it,
Yeah.
and then when I went back to do the lesson, I think I did this, and I didn't know I was doing anything particularly wrong, but
No.
I was just, this was the method I knew, was to memorize things, because that's how you do it in rock bands. You
Yeah.
memorize.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually I got to a piece where I'm sitting there and the chart's in front of me, but I'm not even looking at it because I've memorized it. And Don's just watching me like this, and I'm playing, and I got halfway through and made a mistake, and I went all the way back to the start and started again. And Don said,
can't do
Don
that.
said, no, you're right, just start here.
Oh, he's
And I'm like,
got you. Yeah.
Very good. And he said, you're not even reading this. You said you've memorised it, right? And I said, well, yeah, isn't that what I'm supposed to do? And he said, look, you will have to memorise pieces. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But he said, what I want you to do is read it as you play it. Even though you know it, read it, because you're going to get better at reading.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like the minute he told me that, I read everything from that moment on.
Yeah.
And my reading just escalated to the point where I could read chord clusters in notes, and I would never hope of doing it now. But that's the thing, you don't use it, you lose it.
My experience is, because I play a lot of the single note instruments. I mean, I started on guitar, never read. I was just a rhythm guitar player. But, you know, if you play the flute or the clarinet or the saxophone instruments I played, you just have to read. There's no
right,
if, buts or maybes. What I've found is it takes your mind in a direction that you probably would have never went. because someone else is saying, so an author has written some lines down that you personally would probably have never went in that direction. So I like it. It opens up your mind to new ideas when you're reading.
And what a learning resource. I mean, I think I'll learn some new vocabulary. You just open up a book and start learning it. It is.
It's extraordinary. So
absolutely amazing. Yeah, I used to teach at GIT, which is the school in the sub school in Musicians Institute in LA, and I think I mainly taught private students, so I wasn't teaching any of the core classes like reading or anything like that. No. But sometimes the students would come in and they'd be complaining about having to do reading, and I think they thought they'd find an ally in me because they knew I was a terrible reader and I'm mainly a rock player, and and I was in bands and things, and they thought, Brett will agree with me, and I said no. I said, you're spending this money, or your parents are spending this money, whoever's spending it. You're amongst some of the greatest musicians you will ever be amongst.
Absolutely.
And trust me, you eat your vegetables,
Absolutely.
Eat your veggies, learn your reading, and by the time you walk out of this place, you will be ready for anything. You'll be able to do any gig, any session, and you'll thank them for it, and you'll thank me for telling you. So please do it. So,
and look, one final comment on that. The pushback I often get from people is, I don't know, I don't want to read because it'll hurt my playing. I said, do you know that Louis Armstrong was a good sight reader? Before he became the famous trumpeter that he was, in the little bands he was growing up, and apparently throughout his entire life, he remained a good sight reader, even though he was famous as the father of jazz, of improvising. And instantly they just sort of look, I'm sort of saying, doesn't really work with me. To say that reading music is going to hurt your ability to play without it, it's rubbish.
It's a myth and it's an excuse. Great readers, when you become a great reader, you hear the music on the page.
Yeah.
You don't look at it and see dots. You go, I'm hearing it. There it is.
Totally agree. You turn those dots into sound in your head. It's just
translate them into sound. Singers do it all the time. They sight sing. They read a chart and they sing it. So, I mean, for people with perfect pitch, it's even more ingrained in them because when they see that middle C, they hear it in their brain.
They hear it.
I can sort of estimate it, but I don't have perfect pitch.
No, I don't have perfect pitch either, but it's relative pitch, I think, is what we've all got to really relate to. If someone goes dong, well, compared to that note, what's the next note I want to do?
Yeah, that's the most useful thing to have.
Yeah, I want to take you back to John Farnham. We've got an international audience, and many people probably never heard of John Farnham's name, but just to put it in perspective, John remains the only Australian artist to have a number one hit in each of 5 consecutive decades. Now, when you just stop and think of that, I mean, you were with him at his absolute height, like his rebirth, but John was having a number one hit in the 60s, and then in every decade for 5, he's the only artist. Other artists worldwide, like I think Kylie Minogue's had in UK, but in Australia, John is the only artist to have that. His Whispering Jack album that you played on, at a time when Australia's total population, it was released in 1986, the population of Australia was 16 million people. Whispering Jack sold 1.7 million copies. Now have a cup of tea while you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
One in 10 Australians, that's men, women and children, 1 in 10 had a copy of that album. 1 in 10 people in the country heard you playing guitar. Have you ever just stopped to, that is a mind-blowing thought to me. Has anyone ever heard Brett play guitar? Well, 1 in 10 Australians at the time it was released.
Whether they realise it or not.
Whether they realise it or not. What an amazing impact that album had. I was one of those 10 people. I loved it. It was a turn in the corner of the way music sounded in Australia. You had Hirschfelder with the Fairlight synthesizer. And now another interesting fact, I had the honour in one of my early episodes, I think it might have been episode 4, of doing a feature on Roger McLaughlin, who played the bass on You're the Voice. Now, sadly, Roger's passed away recently.
I know, yeah, I couldn't believe
But I encourage people, it's across 2 episodes, and I spoke at length with him about his time with Farnham, and he really told a beautiful story about him recording that bass part with Farnham sitting there on his fretless bass. So if anyone's in, it's a beautiful, and of course Roger had a whole life beyond that, and before it, a founding member of LRB, Little
and
River Band.
Stars. And,
Stars
yeah,
and all of that
yeah.
stuff. So you'll enjoy that. But tell me about, how does a kid did you grow up in Bendigo? Did you? Where were you born? Or where did you
Well,
grow up?
this area of Castlemaine, like
Okay, yeah.
we had a farm. My family had a farm in a place called Clydesdale, which isn't even a town. It's just a stretch of ground that they've named, and
Okay, yeah.
not even a post office. And
Yeah.
but the farm's still there, and my sister-in-law and nephew run it now. My brother passed away about 20 years ago.
Okay. So how did a kid from the bush end up in the number one band in Australia? I think you were in the Farnham band for close to 4 years or more than 3 years. Tell us the story, first of all. How did that happen? How did you get your foot in the door?
Just the naivety, actually. It was like not knowing what not to do or anything like that. I'd been in a pub band with my friends for 10 years, and I did a plumbing apprenticeship here in town, and the usual thing that young blokes from the country did back then. They got apprenticeships, and that was the thing to do. But I knew I wanted to play music, and eventually I was like, I've got to get to Melbourne. And my bar was set at a very reasonable level. Like, I thought,
Okay.
if I could get into a working cover band, I could make a living, and then I'd be happy because I'd be playing guitar. I didn't want to be a plumber.
No.
And nothing against plumbers; it's a wonderful profession, and we need them. But it
Well,
wasn't
John
for me.
Farnham. John Farnham.
John was a plumber. Yeah, we had a lot of laughs about that.
Mutual
But,
attraction. Yeah.
but so there was a magazine back then I think this was about it must have been early 1985.
Yep.
And so it was the year before Whispering Jack and all that stuff. I played with John before Whispering Jack.
Okay.
And so early 1985, I found this magazine called Sonics. And it was a regular trade.
I remember
trade
Sonics,
paper.
yeah.
And every year they do their yearbook.
Yep.
And in that yearbook, they'd put the names and addresses of record companies, management companies, equipment companies. It was an invaluable resource. And I looked at it and just thought, oh, this could be what I need. So I'd done previous to that, there was a column in the American magazine Guitar Player, and it was called the Spotlight column. And I used to love reading it because it was every month Mike Varney would pick 3 people out of who knows how many submissions he'd get of cassettes from all over the world of guitar players, and you'd get to read about these people, and they're unknown, and they'd put their names and addresses there, and you could write to them. And I remember looking at it going, I've never seen any Australians in this thing. I might send him a cassette and see what happens. And he put me in the book. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I think it was the July 85 issue. So that sort of puts a timeline on this.
Yeah.
Clapton was on the cover. I've probably got about 10 copies of it.
Yeah.
And he actually chose me. And I'm pretty sure I was the first Australian to ever be in it, to be in that column.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, so now I've actually got what would amount to a resume. It was the only actual print acknowledgement of the fact that I even play the guitar.
A good one to have, by the way, guitar.
A really good one, yeah. It was a really nice. He said some lovely things about me. So I Xeroxed a whole bunch of that.
Yep.
And put together cassettes of little demos that I'd done, instrumental demos of me playing drums and bass and everything, and bashing away and shredding away. And hand wrote letters to whoever. It was dear, insert name here. And I found a lot of record company names, but the one management company I found was the Wheatley organisation, and I just, dear Glenn Wheatley, or dear Glenn, and so I sent out about nearly 10, I think.
Yeah.
And the record company ones unanimously came back as unsolicited material, which of course they can't open that stuff.
No.
And there might have been one other management company who I did speak to, but they lost interest in me.
Yeah.
And then this letter shows up. I remember vividly sitting at my mother's place, and she'd got the mail and said, oh, there's something here for you. And it's the Wheatley letterhead. And so I open it up, and then the letter just says, Dear Brett, I just got your tape. Please call me.
Glenn Wheatley.
The letter and the envelope are in a frame on the wall.
Oh, so they should be.
In our house. And
yeah.
But in that moment, I just put the letter down and called the number, and Glenn picked up. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And he said, I got your tape, and it's really great. And he said, look, we're putting together a band for John Farnham, and because John was still in Little River Band at the time.
Yeah,
and he said he just wants to go out and do some pub gigs at the end of the year. This is 1985, and he said, would you like to be in it? And I I said, oh my God, would I ever? Because
Yeah.
about 3 years earlier, my friends and I had all driven to the Bathurst car race, and Little River Band performed there.
Right.
And I was already a huge fan of John, and I was a huge fan of The Net, which is the album John did with them.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to that album just thinking, I wonder if John can sing like this live, because there is some incredibly impressive singing on this record.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And he just blew it away. He obliterated it. That's when I realised, like, he's holding back on the album, and he's so much better live. I just couldn't comprehend it.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to end up meeting him and being in his band for a minute. And so it was one of those moments.
What an amazing moment.
Pure
Yeah.
luck. I mean, I was just talking with Irwin about it yesterday, and I was sitting there. We were talking about that, how this industry works like that, where you can, just those sliding door moments of like, it could have happened, or it did happen, or it didn't happen. Those moments completely changed the course of my entire life. And
Glenn, of course, was a good musician himself. Good bass player from the Masters Apprentices. Fantastic.
I was already a Masters Apprentices fan because my brother
Me
had.
too.
I've still got the single sitting over there.
Yeah.
It was the.
Turn up your radio.
Well, no, it was the live version of Future of Our Nation.
Okay.
And I tell you what, man, Doug Ford takes a solo on that song. Stuart Fraser and I used to listen to it in the hotel room sometime. We'd find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we just sit there and marvel at it. Like, Doug is just playing. He should have been a worldwide sensation.
Absolutely.
I mean, even Clapton would have stopped in his tracks if he'd heard that.
Absolutely.
Well, see, my sister used to buy those albums that came out in the late 60s then. They were like the top 20 hits of the...
Yeah.
And they were just 20 of the songs that were really topping the charts. And one was on one of those. And I remember listening to that and just
What
going,
a song.
man, this is a great song. This guy can sing. And
Oh,
my limited knowledge of what good singing was back then, I just knew that. And then, of course, Don't You Know It's Magic was another great vocal. Like, just a... Yeah. You could just hear the power in this voice and the authority. And I kept seeing John on the Tonight shows. Like,
yes.
Like there were shows like the Penthouse Club back in the late 70s. My mother and I used to watch that. And then there'd be Graham Kennedy show and IMT and the Don Lane show. And you just kept seeing him on all these things and just standing there doing it live. And,
Whispering Jack, tell us about that. Was that largely, I imagine that was sort of multi-track, did the band ever play as a band on Whispering Jack?
No,
or was it?
No, it was a studio creation between John, David Hirschfelder and Ross Fraser.
Yeah.
And what they did was, and Doug Brady was there engineering it, and they started off working on it in John's garage. And so what happened was I ended up getting that gig to tour with John in late '85, and the band was Derek Polici on drums from LRB, Sam C on guitar as well. Thank God, I was freaking out thinking I was only 21 at that time, and I thought I am not qualified to be John Farnham's guitar player on my own. And when I found out, because I already knew who Sam was, he was a legend, and I thought, oh, thank God Sam's there. We've got a pro there to do the heavy lifting, and I'll just kind of
sneak in where you can.
But Hershey was playing keyboards. Bruno De Stanislaw was playing bass, and Nicky Nichols was doing backing vocals. So it was just a Top Gun band. It was awesome. Wow. And they were so good to me. They could tell how green I was. I mean,
you were probably 10 to 15 years younger than most of them, were you? Or
Hershey's only about 3 or 4 years older than me.
Okay,
I mean, which was so intimidating. I mean, I was just looking at him, and John's only about, I don't think John's maybe 10 years older than me. So back then it wasn't
an age
people.
thing.
I mean, they were all still very young people. And but I just knew I was in the room with
greatness,
highly established musicians. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut and my ears open and tried to absorb everything I could. But I was amazed at how they lifted me up. They brought me with them. All I had to do was keep up, and all of a sudden I'm playing with world-class players, and the effect it had on me was remarkable. Like, it just changed me instantly.
But Brett, they must have seen something in you. Like Glenn, when he heard that cassette, like, he's not going to just randomly get some unknown kid to come in the John Farnham. There must have been an energy or something about your playing that he thought, that's what we need, a bit of that in the band.
I think it was the raw energy of it. Like, you could just tell there was how much I wanted it. But the good thing is that from being in our pub band for 10 years with my mates and my cousins, we had started writing songs, so I knew the value of finding a part. You've got to find a part. You can't just stand there bashing away on a chord. There's got to be a hook.
Yeah.
And I recognised that straight away in Sam C's playing. Like when we're in the rehearsal room, and Sam would just find that thing.
Yeah.
And I went, that's what you got to do. You got to be that good. Sam was the master at it. Like he'd instantly play this thing, and you're like, well, the song's got to have that now.
Yeah.
And I had to find something else to do other than what Sam was doing,
Exactly.
but add something to the tune. And I think going in with that mentality, that's what allowed me to learn and adapt really quickly. If I'd just gone in there and thought, well, it's all about me shredding all over the place, then it would have been over. They wouldn't have wanted me in the room with them. And
Look, you've already given an enormous bit of good advice there just before when you said, keep your mouth shut and listen. You know, it wasn't about you. It was about what's my part in this team.
Well, the funny thing was, like, I did an interview quite a while ago with some younger players, and they weren't from our generation, and they were much younger. And they said, look, when you were in the room with these guys and they were older than you, were they trying to sort of keep you down and put you in your place? And I said, no. I said, is that how you think? Like I thought, I'm in the room with people who are reading, who wrote the book. I'm still trying to learn how to read. These people have done it.
Yeah.
And I've done nothing. And I thought, if I can just absorb 10% of what they've got to tell me.
Yeah.
And they were never like that. They were never like, do this, fella. It was
They're
always
interested to
just
see
like,
what you wanted to do. Yeah.
They were like, hey, Brett, you got any ideas? Come on, man, join in. And it was such an and it always was with John's band, because John was like that. Like John was an incredibly inclusive person. He was not like, I'm the star, you listen to me. It was none of that rubbish. He was John was born to be in a band, and it was just, even though he was the star and it was his show, that's what he wanted. He wanted an inclusive environment where he could create music with people. He had no interest in being told what to do or telling people what to do. He wanted it to be this communal thing, and it was just beautiful, man. It was
mate, look, it was
the greatest. And I mean, that was 40 years of my life. That started in 86 or 85.
Yeah.
And
Well,
there was a
40
brief
years.
moment where I went to America. There was about a 3-year lapse where I went to America when he did the Chain Reaction album, and Jack Jones and Phil Buckle took over the guitar duties.
Well, I want to talk about that in a minute. I want to play a little bit more music because I want people to see and hear you play. I want to play, you've got a beautiful video of a song called She's a Woman, recorded live at Bird's Basement in Melbourne. So again, for our non-Australian
That's with Paul Mason, beautiful guitar player from Sydney, a wonderful chap. And Paul does a in honour of Jeff Beck style show, and Paul's totally got his own thing going on, but man, he can do the Jeff Beck thing. Like,
let's have a look and a listen to She's a Woman. Brett, fantastic music. What a band. What beautiful guitar playing. You're playing your Strat, I notice in that. Beautiful Fender Stratocaster and gorgeous sound, tone, lovely
Oh,
tone.
thank you.
You know.
That was actually mixed by Jerry Pantazis as well. So he's not only a fantastic drummer, but he's a great audio engineer as well.
Well, the sound live is absolutely great. That is a beautiful recording that you can really feel it. And the other thing is that 5-piece band, you talked about finding your place in the team in the Farnham band. What I loved about that group you just played, everyone gave each other space. There was look at me, hey, look at me. It's beautiful. You played
and in the context of that Jeff Beck show, like Paul very graciously gives me a couple of songs where I get a bit of a feature, and She's a Woman's one of them. So, I mean, some of the other tunes where I just lay back and play some rhythm, and Paul just takes it to another dimension. So, it's
and I noticed you used, I assume it was a wah-wah pedal, it gave it a different little character.
On Jeff Beck's version on Blow by Blow, he used a voice box. And I don't have a voice box, so I just tried to simulate that. He actually uses, because it's a Beatles song. I always thought it was a Jeff Beck tune. I didn't know it was I didn't know She's a Woman was a Beatles song.
I didn't know either.
But and there's that moment where they go, She's a Woman, and he would do it with the voice box with his guitar. But amazing stuff. So, I just
really
tried
great.
to simulate it with a wah-wah pedal.
Yeah, it's brilliant, mate. Now I want to talk about, I'm not too sure what time it was. I imagine it must have been in the early 90s, was it, where you, for a while, left the Farnham band and took up an opportunity with the Nelson twins in the States. Now, these are the two twins of the late Ricky Nelson. But apparently his parents, Ozzie and Harriet, had a massive sitcom success in America on TV. And Ricky played Ricky in that family sitcom. Were you aware of that? Tell me this little sojourn to the USA to play with the Nelson twins. What's that all about? How did that come about?
Well, that happened in early 1989.
Okay.
And I do remember seeing Matt and Gunner had come out and they'd appeared on Hey Hey It's Saturday.
Okay.
And they'd come out to do promo stuff, but it was before I'd met them. And I remember seeing them on there, and they were on Red Faces as judges, and they were really funny.
Yeah.
And they were just naturals. I remember they didn't perform anything that I saw.
No.
But I just remember seeing them do that, and they were really funny, and I thought, oh man, these guys are great. And then just as it turned out, there was, after we'd done a big orchestral tour with John, and I think he wanted to take quite a bit of time off to sort of regroup for the next album, which was going to be Chain Reaction.
Yeah.
And which I don't think he'd do until 1990. So I thought 1989 was just blank for me. I had nothing going on.
Yeah.
And Jeff Shoecraft, who had worked with John in the management side of things with Little River Band, Jeffrey contacted me out of the blue when I was sort of trying to find something to do, but I couldn't find anything to do. And he said, and I was sort of going through a bit of a relationship breakup at the time, and I thought, if you could just get away, it'd be great. Yeah. And out of the blue, Jeffrey said, look, would you like to come over and meet Matt and Gunner? They're looking for a guitar player, and they really liked what they saw of you with John Farnham, and they wanted to have an Australian in the band because they love Australia. They'd been there and they loved it. And
wow.
And I said, well, I'd love to come over. And I remembered them, but I hadn't heard any of their music. So Jeffrey flew me over to LA, and I remember he picked me up at the airport and dropped me off at the Oakwood Apartments in Burbank. And it was one of those hazy April mornings in LA where I stood on the balcony and there was smog everywhere. And it was an incredibly bizarre feeling. I remember standing there thinking, the only person I know in this country is Wayne Nelson, who had played bass with John for a while, because from Little River Band. But Wayne was all the way in San Diego, so it wasn't like I could even get a cab and go and see him.
No.
But Jeffrey left me with a boombox and the songs, and he said, here's Matt and Gunner's demos that they've got the record deal with Geffen through, so have a listen to these and figure them out. And so I put the thing on, and After the Rain came on, and I went, oh man, this is a smash hit. What a great song. And then Love and Affection came on, and I went, another smash hit. And then the next song came on. It was just hit. Every song I heard was just
a hit.
It was just ear candy, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, this is just brilliant stuff. They were great singers, and I thought, if they can do this for real, this is going to be amazing. And of course they could. You know, they were fantastic singers and musicians. Like play almost anything. I mean, guitar, bass, drums, you name it.
Yeah.
Sang like birds together. They were just
Yeah.
brilliant, just great blokes.
Yep.
And so that evening we all hung out, and I got to meet Bobby Rock, the drummer, and Paul Merkovich, the keyboard player, and eventually met Joey Cathcart, who joined the band on guitar and vocals, and it was a formidable band. I mean, they were amazing musicians. Like
Yes. Yeah.
certainly any fears that these people wouldn't be A-list players was
Yeah.
put to bed because they were fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely heartbreaking for me to consider not working with John. But I think it was one of those moments where I realised I had to
Take an opportunity.
I had to kind of grow up. It wasn't even really like, and look, in my naive state of mind, I thought if I can go to America and have a big career with Nelson,
Yeah.
perhaps I could come back to John's band and people would know me as that famous guitar player from that American band, and I'd bring more people to the John's gigs and contribute in a way.
Yeah, okay.
And still be able to go and then maybe John could go to America and we could do gigs with Nelson. You know what I mean? I sort of had this naive thought that it could all be
But are you
harmonious
probably,
like that.
what
But,
age group are you at this time? How old are you over there when you first
I
went
was
to LA?
about 25, I think.
It's still young, isn't it? Like I can understand your thoughts.
25 or 26, and I felt old because Matt and Gunnar had only just turned 21, I think.
Yeah.
So they were so young, and
Wow.
but it's crazy to think that at 26 you feel like you're getting too long in the tooth to do this. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's understandable that thinking process. Now, were you part of their touring band, or was it just recording you did?
Yeah, I did the album and I toured with Nelson for a year. We played for a solid year in 1991 because I think the album came out in mid-1990, and the guys were trying to get on as a support because that's how you do it in the States. You usually start as a supporting act.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get on a support, but they couldn't get one. Like, there was a stigma to the band because they were really hyping up the blonde twin image.
Yeah.
Which was a shame. I mean, I could totally understand it when you look at the marketing aspect of it, but it undermined their credibility. They were such amazing musicians and songwriters and performers that it's a shame that image overrode that, because people can't see past things sometimes.
It's odd in a way when you listen to the words of Garden Party, which I never knew, but sort of autobiographical for Ricky Nelson.
Very, yeah.
It's a true story.
Rick wrote that because he was Rick Nelson by then.
Yeah. And
I think it's such a shame that he'd already passed away by the time I got there, because I think he would have loved to have met me, because I only knew him as Rick Nelson.
Yeah.
As far as I was concerned, he was a musician. I knew nothing about the Ozzie and Harriet show, and I knew nothing about the Nelsons TV show.
No.
I imagine he probably would have thought, oh, thank God, someone that just knows me as the musician I want to be. Like,
yeah.
And because that would have been me. I would have been, Garden Party.
I just wonder in the American industry whether there was a little bit of a hangover with the boys and their dad's career. I don't know. Some hesitation.
It's
I don't
inevitable. People have a hard time letting go. Like I said, they have trouble looking at two things at the same time.
Yeah.
It could be like a comedic actor wanting to do dramatic acting.
Yeah.
And my daughter is really into. She wants to be a screenwriter and all that sort of stuff, and we talk about this a lot. And I said, it's a lot easier for a dramatic actor to cross over into comedy than for a comedic actor to cross over into drama, because people can't let go of the fact that they're expecting them to do something goofy.
True.
Robin Williams struggled to become recognised. Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey, like, they've all done great dramatic roles, but
you're right.
And it's like I said, it's hard for people to look at a great guitar player who's a great singer and get those two things to work together in their brains.
So you're a rare example of someone who performed and toured and recorded in Australia, your home country, with the absolute top act of the day. You've also had some experience in America. If you had to draw some, maybe not comparisons, but differences, what was it like touring in America compared to, you're at the top of the pops in Australia when you were touring with John Farnham. What's your feelings? What was it like? Was it a bit of a lonely, quiet old road in America? Or is there can you tell us about the differences of that time in America, playing with a great band versus, all that success you had in Australia?
Well, the big difference between the Australian scene, music scene, and the American scene is just a question of scale, really. I mean,
Yeah.
just America has so many more people. So I'd already played in front of massive crowds with John,
Yeah.
and Nelson was playing in front of massive crowds because, like I said, they couldn't get on a support. So in the end, they just said, we're going to have to do our own tour.
Okay.
So they booked their own theatre tour, and it was sensational. For 3 months, we went out and just did our own theatres, 2,000 to 3,000 seat theatres, and they were sold out. It was just tremendous fun, and because
Yeah.
it was our show, we got to do the full show, and it was great.
Yeah.
We had support acts, and I guess, and then eventually we graduated to doing what they call sheds, which are the outdoor shows, which are about they could be 10 to 15,000 seaters.
Yeah.
And so luckily for me, I was already
You've
well
been there.
accustomed to standing in front of those sort of crowds. It wasn't a
Yeah.
shock. But the thing that was really relevant to me was in Australia, like for bands, that you're either doing the big gigs, which you can only do a few of. John was one of the rarities where he could do 12 nights at Rod Laver Arena.
Absolutely.
And places like that.
Yeah.
But for most of it, like Chisel and bands like that, Midnight Oil, they would do maybe 2 nights.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time it was smaller theatres and that sort of thing. Whereas, see, in America, you drive 2 hours, you're in another city with 2 or 3 million people in it.
Yeah.
And we don't have that here.
No.
So it's just that question of scale, really.
Yeah.
But, it was tremendous fun because, like I said, the main thing was we got along so well as people. The band
Yeah.
and the funny thing was, it was one of the healthiest bands I've ever been in. Like Bobby
Wow.
Rock, the drummer, and I both loved to go to the gym. I ended up in better shape at the end of that tour than I was at the start of it. It was
I've read Clapton's 2 books,
Yeah,
and he openly says in there there's 30 years of his life that are just gone. He can't remember anything about it.
I know,
through
yeah,
the drugs.
it
And the
can be
thing
bad.
it's pretty bad. And the thing that blows me away is when everyone was calling him God, he now looks back at that playing and hates it. He cringes because he thought he was playing good, but now sober, because he's, and he's doing some good things, Eric. He's, got rehabilitation centres and that. He looks back now and thinks, oh God, I hate the way I was playing there, because he thought he was sounding different. One final comment on Clapton. I read a beautiful quote in an interview not that long ago from him, that he said, I never felt I was the best guitar player in the world. I felt that I was a god on guitar. I always felt I was the best Eric Clapton.
Of course, yeah.
Isn't that a wonderful way to look at it? It's the only way to look at it,
It's the old be yourself, everybody else is taken thing. It's the thing I love about Clapton too is when we're talking about singers, is when you listen to the early Cream stuff that he was singing on, and then you hear him sing It's in the Way That You Lose It or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like those decades of singing and what it's done to his voice, and it's just like a fine wine or an old tube amplifier. Like
I agree.
I hear it in John's voice. Like
Yes.
if you listen to John's voice from Whispering Jack to, say, the 33 and a third album, like after 20 hard years of touring, it's only gotten better and richer. And Ian Moss is the same, like that. Mossy's voice is better than ever now, and just sonically, it's matured.
How did you get back to Australia?
Well, the Nelson band sort of fizzled out after the grunge thing took over.
Okay.
In 1992, we attempted to do another album, and the guys sort of wanted to make it a bigger concept sort of thing, and unfortunately it ran on a bit. Like it took a while, and by the time that album didn't come out for a long time, and so by the time they eventually released another album, it was 1994, I think.
Okay.
And that was their third album for Geffen.
Yep.
And the end of their contract, and so the times had changed, and no one really wanted to hear that kind of music. It's a shame, because if we'd finished the tour in '91 and very quickly gone back in, knocked another album out, we could have got another year of touring in of '92, and it would have been quite successful, because they had good songs. They just wanted to do more with them. And so, well, it's all hindsight's 2020, isn't it? Who
Yeah.
knows what's going to
So
happen?
did you come back to Australia or just of your own choice, or did
Well,
John
no,
contact you?
John asked me to come back. God bless him. Like I said, he would have had
Wow.
every reason to tell me to,
Yeah.
take a hike and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
made your bed, lying it, mate. And
Yeah, wow.
but I think deep down, I asked John. I was once again so ballistically naive. We were doing the Chain Reaction album, and this was 1990, and I was in the studio with him, and I remember just sitting with him, and I said, John, look, I don't know what to do. Like I said, the Nelson thing is there. I said, I just don't know what to do. Should I do it? I actually asked him if I should do it.
Well, that's a
And I
good thing
remember
to
he
do.
looked at me
Yeah.
with absolute honesty and sincerity and said, mate, he said, all you can do is either do it or not do it, and either regret it or be happy about it. He said, that's all you can do. And he said it to me in a way that I knew he'd had to make those kind of
Oh,
pivotal decisions. And it was almost, there was no real great answer to it,
no.
because I did want to do the Nelson gig, but I didn't want to leave his band.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, looking back on it, I ended up living in America for 13 years, and it really did force me to go through some stuff.
Okay.
I kind of hit a few rock bottoms over
Yep.
there financially and
Yeah.
career wise and everything.
Yep.
So, when I eventually did come back here and I was settled here, and now, especially as I sit here now, I think, well, I wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't gone through all that.
No, it's all
And
part of the
I
journey.
am better off for it. So,
Yep.
yep, you got to take the good with the bad and go, well, if you're happy with where you are right now,
Yeah.
it all had to happen. So
Yeah.
there it
No,
is.
look, it's a credit to you, mate. You've come through it great. Pedal steel video. When I saw that, I thought, hello, here we go. I've had a steel. I've had various pedal steels. That's a beautiful one behind me, a 12
That
string.
looks
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
Mullen one. And I've played pedal steel, slide, dobro, and lap steel, or pedal steel since the 70s, the late 70s. I love it. It's an instrument I absolutely
Oh,
love. And I've got some clips on YouTube that I'm really proud of because I just played in my own way. I'm not locked in the country music thing. I just play whatever I want to play. You've got a video online where you emulate in your own way some of the sounds of the pedal steel by using just a slide on your finger. Let's have a look at it first, then we'll talk about it.
all right.
So first question, Brett, I understand you're playing that on the standard tuning of the guitar. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, do you have to have the action raised a little bit to do that, or are you also playing the standard action?
A little bit, yeah. It's I don't know if you know Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers. Beautiful.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Another amazing singer and guitar player. And
Yeah.
And Warren did a fantastic interview with Rick Beato recently.
Oh, great.
And Warren plays slide in standard tuning as well. And Rick
Yeah.
asked him the question. He said, "What's the action like on your guitar?"
Yeah.
And Warren sort of looked at him and said, "Well, it's too low to play slide and too high to play everything else." And I went, "Oh, I feel your pain. It's right there."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is one of those sort of things where. But see, Derek Trucks plays regular guitar as well as slide.
Yes.
And Derek does it sort of the reverse way to someone like me, where I think Derek plays everything in open E tuning, I think.
Well, a lot of people do use open
Yeah,
tunings.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's sort of reinvented the fretboard so he can
Yeah,
play.
okay.
I remember seeing Derek. I actually played with Derek when he was about 15 years old. We played
Okay.
together at a NAMM show
Yep.
when my friend TJ Helmrich and I had a band, and we backed Derek for the Washburn Guitar Show.
Great.
And he was it was great player back then, but he was still sort of in the Dwayne Allman sort of mould
Yes.
of that style of playing. And then 10 years later, I was back at GIT doing some teaching, and I noticed that his band was playing in the main live room, and I thought, oh, this will be good. I'll go and hear this young fella play.
Yeah.
And it was like a religious experience. I mean, I walked out of there just going, well, I thought I could play slide guitar. I got the full Derek Trucks experience. It was just unbelievable. So I mean,
Oh, mate, your
What a-
video is really good. The bit I really like, obviously you're using a volume pedal, are you, as well?
Yeah, definitely.
The bit I love, I got a real laugh when you reached around behind the bar and pulled the sound, because I'm thinking, like, that is the most famous, I suppose, basic pedal steel sound of that tone bend. I
think
thought
that's
you
the
did
thing
it
too,
well,
'cause
you know.
You could do it on a guitar with what they call the B and G string
Yeah,
bends, you know,
yeah,
where
yeah.
they attach to the strap, or
That's it.
sometimes it's a lever.
Yeah,
And the whole sort of point of me doing these things is where all you've got's the slide. You don't have a guitar specifically tuned, and all you've got's the bottleneck of some
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah.
So I have to angle it to get certain intervals and do certain things, and then the reaching behind the slide to bend it is
Lovely.
I don't have a B bender.
love
People
it.
people have left comments on the video like, "Oh, you could just do that with a B bender," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
and this doesn't sound anything like pedal steel." And I'm like, "It sounds a little bit like pedal
It
steel,
does.
but nothing's going to sound like pedal steel,
No,
but pedal
no,
steel."
exactly. I think it was.
one of those
I felt it was really good because it just showed that you don't have to use an open tuning to do some great things with the slide. Because when you do use an open tuning, well, that's got a lot of problems with it too. You know,
Right.
but
Well, I mean, it's like the amount of times on various recordings. I did a beautiful album about 2 years ago called Guitars for Vets.
oh, okay,
It's an organisation that gives guitar lessons to returned veterans.
brilliant.
And as a sort of a musical therapy, they get them lessons and guitars, and we did
Yeah.
the second version. It's second tour, it's called.
Okay,
We did some beautiful songs on there, and I did all the recording here at home.
Hmm.
And I did a lot of fake pedal steel on that, just to give the flavour of pedal steel.
yeah. Making a living as a musician, like we can all play music. If we're prepared to play for nothing, we can play music anywhere. Or if we're prepared to play for a hairy little $50 gig somewhere for 4 hours working, would you mind helping the caterers cart the trolleys out at the end of the night? But if we want to make a living, or even a substantial part of our living, can you just tell us about, and you've already said you've had some highs and lows there, in today's world, like the days of selling 1.7 million hard copy albums and CDs have gone.
Yeah.
You know, you might get 1,000 streams on Spotify and think that's great until you realise it's 0.0003 of a dollar per stream.
Right.
Like I've got 70 tracks on Spotify. I reckon if I live to 500, I might break the threshold where they have to send a payment to me.
Yeah. It's sort of,
So it's a different world, isn't it? You know, now if
Yeah.
you're Taylor Swift, I noticed she made 300 million last year from streaming. So there's always going to be, you know, the Beatles and Elvis and that.
Absolutely.
Absolute. But can you talk a little bit about making a living as a musician we're recording this in 2025, because you've been doing it. Can you talk a little bit about, I suppose, the challenges, the positives, if there is, and there'll be people interested in hearing your side of the story.
Well, I think the fact that we're doing this right now over Zoom is because of when I was working with my good friend TJ Helmrich. He's a fantastic musician and singer and engineer. Like TJ's a incredible talent.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of albums with him in the States. And TJ was at the forefront of home recording. He had a little Fostex 8-track recorder.
I had one too. Loved it.
And and they were really good quality recorders, those little things.
Yes.
And when we did our first album called Quid Pro Quo, he was working at Cherokee Studios, very famous studio in LA, and he had the idea. He said, what we're going to do is we'll do all the basic tracks like drums and bass, and we're going to record SMPTE code on 24th track, and then we'll put that on one track on the 8-track. Then we can record all our guitar overdubs. We'll have a stereo mix, and then we'll have 5 more tracks to do guitars on, and then the last track will be the SMPTE.
Yep.
Then we'll link them both together and fly all those tracks in, and there's our album.
Yep.
And he didn't even really know, he couldn't swear that it was going to work, but he said, I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And it did, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And so TJ, without really realising, this is before ADAT machines and definitely way before computers could do it.
Yes.
He'd already figured out how to do home recording to the point where you could integrate it with studio recording. And it saved us a lot of money and got us a lot more studio time without having to pay for it because we're in his apartment doing it. And through the years of working with him and him teaching me how to do this sort of stuff and then me teaching myself, when the pandemic hit and it was time to go virtual, I was already there. So, I mean, in this day and age, I would say that it is essential that you get a handle on how to record yourself at home, and that keeps you doing sessions and keeps you working even when it's cost effective, where if someone says, well, I can only pay you this much money, if you look at it and go, especially for someone like me living where I live, if I'm like, well, I've got to drive 2 hours to get to the studio, 2 hours back, parking, fuel. It's not
horrendous.
worth it.
No.
I just say, send me the track, I'll do it here. You'll get a better result, and
Great.
I'll get it done for you by tonight.
Brilliant.
And all of a sudden, the fee makes sense. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you've got to look at what are you doing, why are you doing it, and don't do it for a fee and then grumble about it.
Yeah.
If the fee doesn't sit right with you,
Don't do it. Yeah.
But if you look that way, you walk away happy. You don't end up bitter and twisted about why you're doing it and what you're doing, and you don't want to pollute something you love to do with that side of it. And that way, if you reach a certain stage of your career like I have, where people are reaching out to you to do things because they want your skill level, but they also want to use your name to promote what you're playing on. That's
absolutely
totally fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm very, very fortunate to be in that position. But would you play a solo on my album? It's like, okay, if you want the audio, my fee is this. If you want video as well, my fee is this.
Yes.
I'm happy to do it. And I always say, like, if that's too much for you on an independent budget, I totally understand. I've been there. You know, so
I think that's wonderful advice. What you're sort of saying in a nutshell is, don't take on any gig for the money. Don't trash your love of music just for the sake of some. And I also think there's no shame for anyone who can't feed their family or pay their bills as a full-time professional musician. There's no shame.
Sometimes you are actually better off, because if you end up grinding your way through gigs you don't like, you might not take the guitar out of the case when you get home because you're like, I don't even want to look at it. And because I'm already burnt from doing this 4-hour gig that I hated. And whereas go do something else. You can go there, do that, switch it off at the end of the day, come home and go,
and love your music,
you know,
love your music,
and really have that regenerate you. Like, I mean, you've got to find that sort of equilibrium within yourself. It's like the money thing. It's like, just say, well, okay, for me to do this and be happy about it, I'm working for you, I'm serving your song. It's not me doing what I want to do, but I'm helping you realise your vision. For that to happen, you know, you're like a brickie, or you're like you know, my nephew's a concreter, and I know he doesn't love doing that job, but it pays the bills, and it's hard work, and it breaks his back, but so you better pay him for it. You know what I mean? He's not going to go and do your driveway for free. It's
try and get a plumber. Try and get a plumber or an electrician to come to your house, and you try and set their fee for them. It's just not on. You know,
Well, that's right. That's exactly right.
So why
Yeah.
should it be anything like that with the music? I want to go out with a beautiful track you did again at the Basement, that same band, beautifully filmed and recorded, Beck's Bolero. Tell us a bit about this song.
This is an old classic that Jeff Beck recorded. This was the band that was sort of going to be a supergroup of some kind.
Okay.
But anyway, Paul decided to put this in the set because it's one of the old classics that Jeff played. And for me in particular, I loved it because I'd developed this technique for doing octaves in standard tuning where I have to sort of mute the third and fourth strings with my other fingers.
Yeah.
And I hybrid pick the second string and the fourth string, and you have to really severely angle the slide to get an octave. It's a very easy thing to do in a standard tuning because it's straight across, but in an open tuning, I'm sorry.
Open tuning,
But in standard tuning, it's a beast of a thing to try and do. So I was trying to play the melody like that, and it's a bit ropey in spots, but I get close. You know,
it's great. It's got a.
I'd only just sort of developed the technique. It's quite a new one for me. So, but great fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd just like to say thanks, Brett, for being part of this series. It's been fantastic talking with you and listening to you playing and seeing you play.
A pleasure to be here, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. For our collaboration, Brett composed a beautiful piece of music called Together. It features Brett's distinctive, warm, melodic lead guitar playing, and I join in on the slide dobro.